Hello again, episode number 3. um, Thank you for being so open and honest in the first 2, Nathan. So we're talking about how do we change, right? It's a big, how do we change? Not everything in life we want to change. Some things about ourselves we like, right? We talked about that last time. The things that you see and feel and do with your son are things that you love and feel and do with your son. You're never going to change that. But a lot of things in our lives we do want to change. And the research shows us that we normally change in a state of survival, but we can change in a state of creation. And there is a difference between the two. So for this moment in time, I'm going to ask you some questions about that, living in survival and how we can't change in the survival mode. Now, that's very driven, and I can explain certain things about that, but I want to ask you some questions about the autonomic nervous system. And the study of the mind and the nervous system is very powerful. We both know that. So when we're in survival, we're driven by the hormones of stress. And stress gives us an adrenaline rush to deal with the stress that we're presented with. So we perform on task and deal with the situation. But as humans, we're so clever. We hold on to stress because we're seeking the next adrenaline rush and the next rush, and we hold on stress for way too long. So it becomes a dis-ease in the body rather than a state of ease, which is where creation sits. So can I ask you some questions then, Nathan, because of your background, about the autonomic nervous system and how all of that works?
Of course. So your autonomic nervous system is your brain and your spinal cord. So it's your central nervous system. And that is made up of your sympathetic nervous system and your parasympathetic nervous system. Keep it simple. If you imagine sympathetic is like an accelerator, parasympathetic, para as in parachute, slowing down. There's no good or bad part of the nervous system. We need both to function. If we were all parasympathetic, we would find it very difficult to thrive, or we wouldn't be here. And the same the other way. So there's a balance and a dance between the two, which, as through evolution, the survival mechanism would have kept us alive. So if we were out hunting and we were approached by a lion, we would either get ready to fight, run off, hide. But as soon as that threat disappeared, our nervous system innately knows then, okay, the threat's gone, we shift back into coherence and balance and regulation. So the key is being able to self-regulate, which we know innately how to do, and our baseline is coherence, is regulation. Well, when we are overloaded with stressors, and in this day and age, it's very different to what life would have been like 200, 300, 400 years ago. These stresses are coming from all angles. So we've got external stresses, which might be financial stresses, relationship stresses, relationship at work stresses, health issues. And then we've got the stresses inside ourselves, which are the ones in between our ears, our thoughts. And as we mentioned previously, 70,000 thoughts a day. A lot of those are ones that we would probably class as less regenerating emotions. I don't really like using negative and positive because all emotions are valid, and that's important, an important point to make. So when we are predominantly in this sympathetic state and lacking the balance and lacking the reset back to that parasympathetic state, this state takes energy, and in small moments is perfect. Like I need to run and grab my son from getting hit by a bus. I grab him. I need that quick burst. Blood needs to go to the big muscles. It needs to be focused, laser focused on him. I grab him, come back, and then I need to be able to regulate. You can imagine how you might feel that refractory period, an hour, 2, 3 hours after that event. But then if you layer on 20 events throughout the day, that refractory period never ever goes back to baseline. So then we start to get this energy leak, this energy drain, because our body is preparing for an event where we need energy. And when you're in that state, when that energy is going towards survival, it can then, there's no energy then left to create. And that even just in create health in the moment that you're in. You can't regenerate, you can't heal, you can't um, restore certain cells that might need healing, you can't clean out your autonomic nervous system that focuses on digestion and immune response. If that's lacking energy, those two systems there play a huge part and are essential for you to express health and balance. So if your immune system is lacking energy because it's all being driven into this survival, this stress response, perfect environment for dis-ease or disease and health issues.
Thank you. It's a subject that's passionate for both of us, and the study of neuroscience is part of the training that I deliver, and that's part of the obviously Dr. Joe Dispenza's work. There is an intrinsic link between mind and body, and the name neuroscience is the study of the mind and the nervous system. So there is an activation of brainwave with a response to a situation. So you're absolutely right. If the lion's chasing the zebra in the Serengeti, there's nothing changes out there. There's no change in breeze, warmth, relaxation. The birds are tweeting. Everything's calm until it's not. And then poof, it's like you were talking about chasing your son. If there's a bus and he's in the way, you need a rush of adrenaline, which is why our nervous system we are designed beautifully as animals to respond to stress. If you're going to win a race as a racing driver, you want to put the foot to the pedal and you go and you win. However, no racing driver in the world that races at Formula One, and I was at Silverstone yesterday watching women race, none of you win the race unless you pull into the pit lane, and you need those moments of regeneration to go again. And so you're absolutely right to describe the the autonomic nervous system as the sympathetic and parasympathetic, and it's very much what drives us, but we need both. And when we're in a state of survival, we're not in both, and we keep going and keep going and keep going, and burnout exists. That state, from my perspective, is in a high beta brainwave. So it's this cycle of activity in the mind that is burning energy. So the body's burning energy, the mind is burning energy. And when we're using AI, that's burning energy that no one talks about at the moment. So for us to change in that state doesn't happen because you can't. And research shows us that you can't change in a state of survival. You can achieve results. You can win the race. You can hit the project timeline. You can drive results for an organization. You can hit your profits. You can change share price. You can drive change on your health, but you can't do it in a state of survival because that mechanism won't allow you. Tell us how we can engage more in a parasympathetic state where change is possible.
So I think it all starts with awareness and learning to understand and feel what it's like to be in a survival state. And again, it's not about labeling it as bad or good. And the key to navigating life successfully is to be able to regulate. We are dysregulated, and we do that by kind of bringing our attention inwards. And there are certain things that we can do that help our nervous system vibrate at the frequency, help reset. One is breath, like conscious breathing. That is a direct window into creating balance, coherence. We can layer on thoughts and intentions as well, particularly regenerating emotions. That helps bring coherence between the heart and the brain, which there is tons of scientific research of decades from the Heart Math Institute that show that we do these certain techniques that don't take a lot of time. It's all about consistency. That communication between the heart and the brain is essential to create this state of regulation, create this state of balance, and the ability to shift between the two. Because it's, again, we don't want to be parasympathetic all the time. It's about using the sympathetic when we need it and then swinging back to the parasympathetic. And it's a dance that, if done well, you can go from high beta stress. If you have trained your body, neuroplastic properties in the reprogramming we can do of the brain, after that stress and bus has gone, we should be able to drop back down to, okay, let's carry on reading a book that we were reading a minute ago. It
Mm,
takes practice, like anything. Like, we all want
yeah.
everything now. We've got Amazon, at a click of a button, we can
Yeah.
have them tomorrow. It depends how you look at it, because if we're looking at a quantum space and time, things can happen just like that. But it's also, it's this 3D reality we're in is part of our life. And again, it's no good or bad. It serves a purpose, as does quantum physics, as does Newtonian science.
We look at that as an analogy. Then we talked about the lion and the zebra. I mentioned that, there's something changes in the atmosphere, and we sense that as humans anyway. If there's a change in atmosphere in your home environment or in your work environment, you instantly go into fight or flight mode, and that could end up being a result of an argument, aggression, showing up differently, not being authentic because you're responding in that moment. And there is a power in the pause. If you can give yourself time just to reflect a little before you react, that's really powerful. And you can't do that in a state of survival. 15 minutes is how long it takes normally a lion to chase a zebra. And either the zebra's dead and the lion's getting what he wants and he's eating, or the zebra's got away and he's surviving and thriving. But what they do is they are enabling their own nervous system to relax. They're both exhausted. They don't keep chasing each other. They lay down or they go back to grazing. And that's their parasympathetic engagement. They are perfectly designed to step on the gas or to step off. We as humans don't know the difference. And you're right, we live in a world of instant communication, instant gratification, and the threat no longer comes at us in reality. It comes at us through our screens in the form of cyberbullying, fraud, urgency, social engineering, fake news. And we have to learn how to be more resilient with our digital devices. So for me to give an explanation of how do we correlate brainwave activity to the nervous system. So the phone is not just a mobile phone, it is an operating system. It is literally a computer system in our hands, and we live our lives by this phone, and it dictates us. We measure all of our health. I wear a Whoop and I measure my own health by that. Occasionally I step in and step out, but I measure everything through my phone. It's an operating system. So is this. Everything that happens up here, our brain is an operating system, and it operates everything to do with the nervous system. But on your phone, occasionally you get a notification to say, update the software.
Mm. Right.
And because it's our phone, we do as we're told, right? We do what the phone tells us. So if you're like me, you will plug it in. Overnight, the software upgrade happens and you open the phone. It's a whole new looking state of being, and it feels a bit uncomfortable to re-navigate those graphic images and what have you. But we soon get used to it and we carry on, and we've got better security, better redirection, better access. Everything we need has had the software upgrade. But that's just what you've alluded to before about brainwave activity and meditation. Meditation and breathwork are the software update for our operating system. It's that operating system that we need to upgrade. And that's the difference between living in survival and living in creation and that creative state. You mentioned before on the previous podcast that you're very analytical. You're a scientist by trade and by learning, and you're very analytical and you want to work things out. I'm going to align you with Einstein. He was exactly the same, right? He's a scientist, right? And one of his classic statements were that your logical mind will get you from A to B, but your imagination will take you anywhere. And he is a scientist that's highly analytical, and he knows how to get from A to B. But in those moments of genius, he was in an imaginative state.
Yeah.
So for me, what that means from the training that I do is that means he was able to shift from high beta brainwaves into something called the alpha brainwaves, which is imagination. So from a chiropractic perspective and the nervous system, can you explain a bit more the benefits of, like you said, you can't be in a permanent parasympathetic state. Give us an explanation of what that does what the benefits are. We know what survival does to our systems. What does creation do to our systems?
So for us to create, like you said, we need to be in that parasympathetic state. And the benefits of that are we are able to be more coherent, be more present, less concerned of our external environment, because that takes energy, again, which is needed in our day-to-day life, driving to work, interactions at work. but it's coming back to the baseline. And as you said about meditation, breathwork being the update to the software, what we need to do is improve our baseline, because we will go up, we will go down. But what we can do through this work to help activate the parasympathetic state when we want to or need to is to change our baseline, which might be here if we've never looked into this work, and then bring it here. And when we're in that state, the main, one of the only thing that then allows us to change is because our energy is not being driven into the survival mode. So the foot is now off the accelerator. It's now at a balanced state, coherent state. And there will still be some part of the sympathetic system working in the background, but it won't be that geared up, releasing stress hormones into the blood. When we're in that parasympathetic state, the energy then can go to do what it's supposed to do, create balance, start to heal, start to direct energy into the immune system, because that needs energy to function, into the digestive system, into the heart, into the brain. And when you're in that state, it's ease, and there's balance, and there's coherence. And that's the only way we can create from, because I know you said you can either create from a state of like your back's against the wall, or you can change from a state of ease. I think it's different, because if you are solidly in survival mode, you can't change. I don't think. So you then need to start the process of, okay, we need to now create balance, even if that's just can I do it for a minute? Yes, the body will try and pull you back into survival mode. Can I do it for 3 breaths? Can I do it for 4 breaths? Can I do it for 5 minutes? And I think the key is, and for people listening that have never tried any work like this, like progress over perfection. Perfection doesn't exist. And with this kind of work, every time you bring your brain and your intention and your energy and your thoughts back to the present moment, it's a win. I've been meditating for 10 years, and sometimes it can take me 20 minutes to quiet this mind, of retraining it. Like it's this wild, crazy dinosaur running around, rampaging. And you just have to be kind to yourself. And it's not about perfection. And that kind of ripples through life. And it's the same with meditation, mental rehearsal, whatever word sits with you better. It's don't be put off by the distraction, because your body is so programmed to get up and make that coffee, get up and have a shower, answer that email, check Instagram. But it's the magic and the benefit is that coming back. Okay, the mind's gone there, come back. Even if it happens every minute for an hour, but you've sat there for an hour, you're going to get up a different person to the person who sat there an hour. And sometimes the whole session might be like that. Sometimes you might feel that everything is calm and at ease, and you think, oh, I've mastered it. And then when you go to do it again, it's the opposite. It's the act of doing it that makes the difference to the nervous system. We're not trying to create perfect outcomes every time we sit down.
Yeah, I think at the beginning you mentioned about the reset of the stress that you can handle. There are multiple different things you can do to reset. And if we don't reset, we're on what is known as automatic pilot. And that's the autonomic nervous system is the automatic pilot. And so we go through day being unconscious of our conscious thoughts, actions, and behaviors. We're no longer conscious of that. You can get in a car and drive from A to B and not even remember the journey. But also, when you first started to learn to drive, you hadn't got a clue how to all these 5-dimensional things all connected together and still be aware of the traffic on the road. So the automatic pilot that we're on, we have to break that habit. And to break habits starts with how we think. It then creates a whole new choice, which creates a whole new experience. And when we have a different experience, we feel differently about that. So that whole thinking, acting, feeling becomes a habit loop, and we don't know we're doing it anymore. And you're absolutely right. You're in that survival mechanism 24/7 because we don't know how to shut down the noise. And there are multiple reasons why that happens. So becoming present and taking those moments of pulling in the pit lane of what we need to do every day. And like you're absolutely right, it's either a minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or an hour. Depends on how much time, and you have to think greater than time to change. So Thank you very much for explaining a bit more about the nervous system.
Real
And
pleasure.
and the summary is you can't change in a state of survival, but you can change in a state of creation. But it's knowing how to pull yourself out of the one and into the other that where the sweet spot happens. Thank you.
Thank you.